Alright, what's up everybody? It's your boy Akeem and welcome to today's vlog. I'm here to wrap things up with my predictions for the 2014 college football year. For today's vlog, I'm here to talk more particularly about the playoff system for the first year. This is going to be the first year of the college football playoff at the FBS division. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an explanation of this year's playoffs as well as my end of the year prediction of who will win the Heisman and the national championship. But before I begin, I have a couple of key interleague matches among the first couple of weeks of the college football season. Some key matches that I think will help to determine the path of this year, who will be one of the top 4 teams entering into this year's playoff system. Now I'm going to start with the August 28th. Boise State's going to be playing against Ole Miss at the Georgia Dome, a neutral site between these two teams. Now you have to look at JG, the running back for on the Boise State Broncos. They're going to have to play against the Robert Kimdichie and that Ole Miss defense. That's going to be a great game for you guys to watch. August 30th, Clemson's going to be playing at Georgia. This is going to be a rematch because last season Georgia Bulldogs lost against the Clemson Tigers at Clemson. As well as on that same day, Florida State's going to be playing versus Oklahoma State at AT&T Stadium in Houston, Texas. That's going to be a good game to watch. And as well as Wisconsin's going to be playing against Louisiana State University in Houston. Well, just a little bit away from Arlington, Texas, at the NRG Stadium. That's going to be a couple of great games for you guys to watch. September 6th, Michigan State is going to be playing at Oregon. Now, this could be the Rose Bowl of this year's matchup, because I'm going to explain later on in today's vlog. And as well as I mentioned before, a revenge game for my Texas Longhorns, as they're going to be hosting the BYU Cougars. They got crushed last season, particularly against the run this year. But we have a new head coach in Charlie Strong, and that defense, I think they're definitely going to kick some butt into that matchup on come September 6th. And September 13th, UCLA is going to be playing at Texas. That's going to be 2 back-to-back interleague games for my Texas Longhorns, and they're going to be playing against tough opponents. But I think it's going to be an even tougher opponent against the Bruins, led by quarterback Brett Hundley. Sticking on that same date, A.J. Johnson and Tennessee Vols defense is going to be playing against Eric Stryker and Oklahoma's defense when Tennessee plays against Oklahoma. That's going to be an interesting game for you guys to watch. On Thursday, September 18th, Auburn's going to be playing at Kansas State. September 20th, Miami of Florida, the U is going to be playing at Nebraska. That's going to be the final game that I think that everybody should be looking at earlier on in the season. And then later, past September 20th, it's going to be more into conference play. So those are some key matches earlier in the season that I think that can determine the path for some of these conferences in college football, who will represent the top 4 seeded teams of this year coming towards the end of the season. Now, I just mentioned the top 4 seeded teams. The reason why I just said that is because with the new playoff system, the top 4 seeded teams will be determined who will play in the 2 semifinal matchups to play for the national championship. Now, for these semifinal matches, there's going to be a rotation year in and year out for the next years. There's going to be a rotation before 6 bowl matches. The Cotton Bowl, the Peach Bowl, 2 new bowls. That's going to be a part of the BCS system rotation. The Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and Rose Bowl. We already know about those particular bowls. They're still going to be in the rotation for the semifinal matches for who will play for the national championship. Now, talk about these bowl matches with the rotation. Now, because the who will be determined, it depends on the top 4 seeded teams, and they're actually going to be voted without a computer system, which is a great thing. It's going to be more human votes. And one particular thing that I do like is that they're going to have a representative from each of the 5 major conferences in college football, which is a great thing. So they're trying to make things as fair as possible, and teams cannot vote for themselves to be in the top 4 seeded teams come at the end of the season. But actually, at the end of each week, these voters are going to actually determine who will be ranking in the top 25. They will actually adjust the rankings week after week instead of using the computer, but they're still going to be looking at scores and strength of schedule, which will affect their particular selections, their votes overall. Now, going back to these 6 bowl games and the rotation, now I mentioned before that Michigan State is going to be playing at Oregon, so I think that could be that Rose Bowl this season, because this year for the 2 semifinal matches, it's going to be the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, and because of that, the top 4 seeded teams, it might not be a Big Ten and a Pac-12 team together in the top 4 teams at the end of the season, and due to that, when the Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl is actually not part of the rotation, that's when it's going to get more back towards tradition. The Sugar Bowl is more of an SEC, the SEC champion versus the Big 12 champion, and the Rose Bowl, as I mentioned, is the Pac-12 versus the Big 10. Now they're definitely going to go back to tradition when the playoff bowl games does not involve the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl. Now, for the Orange Bowl, if the Orange Bowl is not part of the rotation, the ACC champion will definitely play in the Orange Bowl, and they're probably either going to play against the number 2 SEC team, the number 2 Big 10 team, or possibly Notre Dame if they make it to a BCS matchup. So that's going to continue on with a little bit of a tradition and a set match for these 3 particular bowl conference games. Now, for the 3 remaining Cotton Bowl, the Peach Bowl, and the Fiesta Bowl, it's going to be more of an at-large bids and then probably conference champions from the non-AQ conference teams in college football. So that's going to be an at-large and as well as possibly a conference champion from another of a non-major conference football conference. So that's going to be a little bit of what they're going to stick with for those particular bowls: the Orange, the Cotton Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and the Peach Bowl. Now it's time for me to start giving you my predictions of who will win the national championship. But before I begin with that, I'm here to give you my prediction of this year's Heisman Trophy winner. Now the winner that I predict this upcoming season, I'm going to have to go with Baylor's Bryce Petty. Now, due to the schedule for Baylor, they have a chance of going undefeated, but 2 particular matches that they're gonna have to might have a hard time against is against the Oklahoma Sooners and my Texas Longhorns. If they go undefeated and Bryce Petty increases his numbers this upcoming season, I think that Bryce Petty will win the Heisman Trophy. Now, my sleeper this season, I'm gonna have to go with Florida State's, not Jameis Winston, but Carlos Williams, the running back. I think he's going to be due for an outstanding breakout season because he's going to be that lone back, and I think he possibly could break the FSU single season rushing record at the end of the year. Now, this kid has a great combination of size and speed, and I think he could be a good, excellent receiver outside of the backfield, another weapon for the receiving corps for Jameis Winston, another option for him to throw to. And I think that Carlos Williams is a phenomenal player. I think he's going to be due for an outstanding season, making himself a sleeper come towards the end of the year. Now it's time to talk about my national champion, but I got to give you my top 4 seeded teams, the teams who I believe that's going to make it to the playoffs this year. Starting with number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide. At number 2, Oregon Ducks. I think they will make the top 4 come to at the end of the season. Florida State University at number 3. I think that's going to be another team to repeat and possibly repeat as national champions last season. And the last 14 is the Baylor Bears. I think that Baylor has a chance of going undefeated or at least winning a Big 12 championship. I even predicted them winning the Big 12 championship this upcoming season. Now, for these 4 teams, I'm going to have to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide of winning this year's national championship. Even with a new quarterback in Jacob Coker, but they still have some great offensive linemen, and it's all about what happens within the line of scrimmage, the offensive line as well as the defensive line, and even that front 7 defensively. And they have a nasty front 7, some great players that everybody should keep their eyes on. And offensively, they still have a lot of key weapons around Jacob Coker. I think Jacob Coker is going to be just fine in his first long season starting at quarterback for the Crimson Tide. And we all know about Nick Saban. He's a brilliant coach, even though a lot of people don't like him personally, like myself. But he's still a great coach, and I think he could lead this team to another national champion. I believe it will be his 3rd at Alabama if they win a national championship, but I'm going to have to go with Alabama as my national champion. Now, my sleeper for the national championship, this was a little bit of a tough one with me, but I have to go with my Texas Longhorns. I think due to the defensive side and with Charlie Strong helping out that defense, I think my Longhorns should do a lot better. It's the offensive side and that quarterback and David Ash. I think this is a little bit of a concern, but I think they will be just a little bit fine and increase and possibly win a Big 12 championship, but I'm still predicting the Baylor Bears of winning the Big 12 championship and the Alabama Crimson Tide winning this year's national champion. Now that wraps things up with all my predictions and previews headed towards the 2014 season. And now if there's some big news in college football, I will give you blogs about those and give you my opinions. But then pretty much the next time I'm going to see you guys is for week 1 of this year. Thank you for watching today's blog. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.